Again for joining us today in our masterclass on search engine optimization, three simple ways of simplifying this particular topic, which is of so much relevance and importance to small business owners. And we are having this masterclass again, once again, being run by Claudia of With Small Business, our partner on all of these masterclasses for the past few months. And if you haven't seen any of our earlier sessions with her, we would strongly encourage you to go into our Shopmatic, goshopmatic.com webinars page, and you will find some previous recordings, which will be of great value to you and your business. So today, we'll be kicking off any minute now. So Claudia, over to you. I know I've often done an introduction to you about, your about your.
I'll be doing it anyway.
Your sterling background on communications and advertising, and also the fact that you are such a successful entrepreneur in your own right, and that you bring all of that experience into these conversations and into this into this space that you do as a consultant for e-commerce. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let you share a little bit more about yourself. Yes, please.
Thank you, Emma, and welcome everyone to today's session. So today we're going to be talking about 3 steps to simplify search engine optimization, or SEO. This is actually the 5th masterclass that I'm hosting with the Shopmatic team. So thank you again to the Shopmatic team for having me along to share some of my knowledge in this particular topic. So we're planning to go through how to simplify search engine optimization today. We're going to break it down into some bite-sized chunks, as well as help you with some priorities for implementation of some things that you can focus on after the session. So just to introduce myself to those who haven't attended any of our previous masterclasses, I'm Claudia North, co-founder of With Small Business. I'm actually a certified practicing marketer, and I've been in the space for about 25 years, both in digital marketing and marketing strategy. I've worked across Australia, New Zealand, lots of parts throughout Asia, as well as North America. And I've also founded my own e-commerce businesses. In terms of With Small Business, so where I'm a co-founder, we actually started this business to make expert e-commerce marketing advice affordable for small businesses globally. So let's jump straight into our session and what we're going to be talking about today. So first of all, for those that don't have a really good handle on the topic in terms of search engine optimization, I'm just going to do a little bit of a refresher in terms of what exactly search engine optimization is about. Secondly, we're going to tackle the fundamentals, and this is where we break the topic down into 3 components, which make it a lot of an easier approach to being able to tackle this particular topic. And finally, we're going to go through some practical steps on wherever you are in your SEO journey. There will definitely be something practical that you can take away from the session today to start to look to apply into your business to get your business ranking further up the organic search rankings on all the search engines. So before we get started, we're just going to run a poll. This just helps me get a better understanding of the audience here so I can tailor some of the information. So just before we get started, if you can please tick 1. Are you able to launch the poll there, Emma?
Doing it right away.
Super.
Right. And here we go.
Thank you. Fantastic. So if you just tick each of the SEO practices that you are familiar with, and if you're not familiar with any of them, no problem at all, just tick the none of the above. So it'd be great if everyone live, all of our attendees here today, can just tick 1 or 2 or 3 of any of these practices that you're familiar with in SEO. So we've got technical SEO, we have SEO relevance and SEO authority. If you're not familiar with any of them, then by all means tick none of the above. So we'll just give, how are those numbers coming in, Uma?
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly share that with you. Actually, everyone is absolutely in the right place today for the webinar. We have close to 90% of them actually saying that none of the above. So they're here to learn.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, well, that's great. They're certainly going to get a lot out of the session today.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's great. Thanks, Uma.
All right, I'm just going to end the poll now.
Thank you. So we've got lots to cover today. So what I just wanted to start with was just to give some context in terms of where search engine optimization sits in the e-commerce growth framework. So for those of people that joined my very first masterclass with Shopmatic in December last year, I spent the whole session talking about this e-commerce growth framework to give you each a sense of how do you step back and have a look at your business and focus on each of the different disciplines for growing your business. So for those that have also joined any of my other masterclasses, you would have seen this slide. So just for those new people, in summary, what we went through in this session was basically how the fundamentals and the foundations for growth are extremely important when growing your business online, as they really support your future growth. So we touched on these 8 pillars, the 8 foundations that really lay the groundwork for growth and scale, which you can see here as an example. So this framework we've actually used with new store owners as well as established stores, and these same foundations still apply. We've used it with startups through to established businesses that are turning over 20+ million annually online. And so the framework hasn't only simplified digital marketing for these small business owners, it really provides consistent growth over time. And what we've found is that the longer businesses have committed to this framework, the more their revenues increase to new levels and they see this consistent growth. So we highly recommend, just following up on what Uma said, that you can head over to the Shopmatic's YouTube channel, or if you go to the Shopmatic website and go to the resources tab, there's actually all the masterclasses and the framework that you can find and watch at another time. So now to move on. So today we're all about doing a deeper dive on our 4th e-commerce growth foundation, which is search engine optimization. So just to kick off with a little refresher on SEO. So SEO is actually the process where you improve your site's rankings for search queries. So, you know, if there's Google, which is a search engine, there's Bing, there's Yahoo, there's quite a number, but most of us are obviously familiar with Google. Basically, the better that your page can get ranked, then the more likely these search engines or Google, for example, is going to recommend your content for users when they're searching for information. So in terms of how SEO works, search engines actually become more valuable by getting more users. And so when we talk about more valuable, what this means is that search engines, again, such as Google, they actually make money by serving advertising to their users, and they can do this through Google Ads. So it's really, really important to them to be able to have users coming back to their search engine and serving up content that answers the questions or the queries for their users. So they do this by providing the best possible answers to their users' questions. And so if we can help the search engines answer the users' questions, then basically they give us a higher ranking. So search engines get more usage, but we get more traffic. So that's the basics in terms of how SEO works. So Uma, I'm just going to hop over to you again for another poll. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to do a poll. How many of the following do you think are search engines? So you can see all of these. We've got YouTube, Amazon, Pinterest, etc. What I want you to respond to is, if you have a look at these, how many of them do you think are search engines? The answer is either 5 or 12. So if you're unsure, again, no problem, just click unsure. We'll just give you all just 1 minute. It's just a fun poll, no test here.
It is interesting. Yeah, lots of interesting answers flowing through. We have about 40% saying the answer is 5 and about 44% saying it's 12. And about 15%, well, the numbers are jumping a little bit now. So
yes,
a few of them are still unsure, but the numbers are changing a little bit. People are still voting. If you haven't still voted, quick 5 seconds to get it out so that
yes.
we can know. Again, like Claudia said, it's not a test. It's just something which we will, find useful to know, what we all think are search engines and what are not search engines actually. Great. So
yes.
At this point in time, we have 50% saying 12 and 35% saying 5, and the remaining are unsure.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Uma. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that quick little quiz or poll. The answer is 12. So 50% of you that guessed 12 or knew that it was 12, that is a correct answer. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because when we think of search, we largely think of Google, which is fair enough because Google search actually acquires 81.5% of market share compared to all the other search engines such as Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. And what I have here is by no means an exhaustive list. But what I wanted to demonstrate here is something that I want you to keep in the back of your mind, because later on, when we start talking about content for search engine optimization, it's just going to be really important for you to remember that there's actually many places that people search for information. And although Google is our usual go-to, depending on what your type of business is, where your audience hangs out, there's other opportunities where you can be serving up content to audiences that aren't just on Google. So that's just what I wanted to share in terms of engaging everybody in that poll. So thank you for that. So what I wanted to touch on here is what SEO is not. Now, there's been lots of practices over the past decade where businesses try to do growth hacks, where they try to utilize the ranking system or the algorithms for Google search to improve their rankings in search engines. And unfortunately, or fortunately, in a way, search engine optimization has evolved over time. And so it's not something easy that we can pay for overnight, like advertising. So it's definitely not something, it's definitely not paying for traffic. It's not a scam. It's not shady. It's really not fast. It's not one of those things that we can quickly fix. And as I just mentioned before, it's not just about optimizing for Google, as there's lots of other platforms that function as a search engine. And it's not that hard, and that's what we're here to break down today for everybody. But again, as I would say, it definitely does take time, commitment, and patience. So search engines and the algorithms, they do evolve every day, and they're going to continue to stamp out any algorithm hacks that try to cheat the system. And ultimately, authenticity will prevail. And I'll explain a little bit more on this a little bit further. But ultimately, as I'm going through this, if you think about it from a content perspective or a search perspective, if you're authentic in your content and you naturally connect with your audience, you will ultimately be rewarded and ranked higher by search engines. So I just wanted to go through my experience with small businesses and SEO, and it's been something a little bit like this. So see if this is familiar to you. So you might be hearing everywhere that you should be working on increasing your traffic through search engine optimization. But the challenge is that when you hop into Google and you look up SEO tips, it looks something like this. Make the website about one thing, mention keywords where they matter the most, link to internal pages on your site, remove anything that slows your website down, use keywords in your images, link to other websites, update your website frequently. I mean, there's so much there, and that's just in the top SEO tips when you search on Google. Under that, you can see other articles and blogs, the 10 most important SEO tips to know. This is a great one, 75 actionable SEO tips that work like a charm. And then there's 24 expert SEO tips and advice to boost your traffic. So you can see that with all of this out there, it's extremely confusing and complex in terms of what do you focus on that's going to help support your long-term business growth. Additionally, you might be reading articles that are giving advice on, optimizing your content for featured snippets, publishing content regularly, mobile first indexing, and focusing on long tail keywords. Again, lots of confusing terminology in there and lots of different messaging in terms of where do you put your time and attention from a search engine optimization perspective. So this image is basically potentially what the chaos and confusion looks like in your brain when you think about SEO. So just for one more quick poll, just to get you all engaged, I just wanted to quickly put this in. It just helps me, again, tailor the rest of the content in terms of the audience here. So Umar, just calling out to you for our next poll. Basically, do you feel like you've been trying different SEO tactics to drive organic traffic to your site, yet you can't see any real results? So I think that because...
All right, let me just quickly find this particular poll. Let's see. Right. Have we executed in your piece? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Thank you so much. Okay, so do you feel like you've been doing different SEO tactics to try to drive organic traffic, but you really haven't seen any results from that? So I appreciate that. I think it was about 90% of people aren't familiar with SEO. So I appreciate that you may haven't tried any tactics, but this will just, again, help me further for those that have how they're feeling about it.
Right, so we've got
just
about
a minute.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just going to share some results with you. So we have about 30%, 25% right now, which is sort of shifted, saying that yes, they have, been trying. And actually 70% saying that no, they have not, they haven't tried any tactics at all. So yeah, that's a significant number here who haven't tried.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you, Umar. That was our last poll for the middle of that. Fantastic. So just moving on, it's not just you in terms of confusion. It's not just you in terms of applying, various tactics and not really seeing, the results of those. So before we get into the practical tactics, I just want to give you a better understanding of, why this is the case and why you might be feeling this way in terms of this particular marketing discipline. So I coined this phrase, which is, SEO is a digital chameleon. And the reason that I did that is because it changes based on its environment. So how does SEO change based on its environment, you might ask? So there's two ways that this environment changes. And the first is the algorithm is actually based on the behavior of users online. So basically, if you think about it, search engines are alive with close to 7 billion searches daily of users searching for information. And if you think about it, these behaviors or these humans, their behavior changes every day. And so then the algorithms that do all of the background work and do the rankings and then serve up the content based on user queries, they're deeply infused into artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this is basically to improve the search experience every day for its users. So optimizing for search engines is based on users, so human behavior changing with 7 billion searches daily, and then algorithms optimizing for this changing users' behavior. So whatever potentially works in search engine optimization today might work today, but might not work tomorrow. And this is why I mentioned earlier the point around being authentic with your content and connecting and engaging with understanding your consumers' needs and being able to produce content and have content on your website that is actually relevant to their queries is the way that you win the long game in search engine optimization. So not only that, at any time, Google can actually change its algorithm. And the challenge with this is that the changes, when they make these changes to the algorithm, they can actually wipe rankings from search results. So some people might remember, but way back around 2011, there was some Google algorithm updates, and they called it, one was Panda and one was Penguin. And when these happened, many businesses search results or rankings actually got wiped. So in the golden age of SEO, which was some time ago, it was definitely a winnable game. Now, the challenge these days is getting the right traffic to your website. It's not only difficult, but it's hard to measure because Google now hides a significant number of search keywords. So you really can't be quite sure on exactly what search terms or queries your website visitors search for in the search engine to find your website. This is an example of one of my businesses, one of my clients that I've worked with for a number of years. And you can actually see here that 96% of their searches, and I think I did this over the past 3 years, from an organic search perspective, is not provided. Another point I would make is that if you're actually paying an SEO service, it's definitely worth doing a deeper dive into what activities they are conducting on your behalf, as they could be unknowingly be actually damaging your website rankings. Things like 300-word blogs from content farms, these could actually be wasting your marketing investment, as well as buying backlinks. This has definitely been a tactic in the past that Google's really cracked down on with their algorithm. And so links from link farms no longer work. Basically, if you're going to invest in backlinks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later if you're not 100% sure on what that is, but it's really important to check that the websites that are that have links back to your website have a domain authority of 40 or higher. Now, again, if that's technical for you, if you have somebody doing your SEO, just make a note to maybe ask them if they're doing, they're getting backlinks for your website. Are those websites that they're placing the links on to come back to your website actually have a domain authority of 40 or more? So with all of this, how can we simplify SEO and be effective in driving results? So we've really broken this down into a simplified 1, 2, 3 approach to tackle. And the first component or the first step in SEO is called technical SEO. The second is called relevancy. And the third is the third component of SEO is authority. So we're going to dig down into each of these a little bit further, as well as give you some practical tactics that you can take away to implement into your business. But first, before we do, we're just going to get started on running through the Shopmatic SEO best practices. So this is definitely the first place for you to start in terms of getting your SEO in order. So I'm just going to run through a number of areas within the platform that you can optimize your website for search engine optimization. So this first screenshot, just basically if you head to your My Shopmatic webpage and you click on the home menu, then going down to Web Store, and you can see there in red highlighted is SEO. So you can click on SEO, and when you do that, you'll come through to this home screen. So first of all, you'll see, you can see in the red box here, Google Search Console that we've selected. I'd like you to ensure, so make a note, ensure that after this session that you absolutely have this connected, so Google Search Console connected to your store. The reason being is that, first of all, Google Search Console is a free tool from Google that can really help you understand how your website is performing on Google search. It also helps you to improve your appearance on search to bring more relevant traffic to your website. And the Search Console provides information on how Google will crawl your website, how it will index and serve your website up so that you can actually have help to monitor and optimize your website's performance. So there's no need, once you actually connect Google Search Console, what I would say is that there's no need for you to log into the tool every day. If new issues are found, Google will certainly alert you. So make sure you've got your Search Console notifications on. They usually send you any notifications via email. I would suggest that you check, maybe put a note in your diary to check Google's Search Console once a month. Or if you're making changes, so if you're making a lot of content changes to your website, then I check it maybe weekly just until your data sort of and any alerts stabilize. Okay, so next, in terms of our second SEO Shopmatic feature, I want you to ensure that you have all of your page titles and page meta descriptions completed for each of your website pages. So you can see here again in red in the selected box in this screenshot that there's a drop-down menu for each page. So you can select each page and then you can add your page titles and your meta descriptions. So just to go into a little bit more detail, so when entering in your page titles, you have a character limit of about 70 characters. I highly recommend you use as much of this as possible with descriptive SEO friendly keywords to really help support your the increasing of your rankings. When you actually develop your page titles, it's really important to consider that they're unique. So you don't want to have the same page title on a number of pages, as well as you want it to be unique, which helps again with search engine rankings. So unique page titles really offer one of the most effective means to classify your page by search engines, and they're actually a really strongly weighted ranking factor. So after you've set up your Google Search Console as your number one, or just checking that that is connected and going in and having a look at any notifications or alerts, the next thing I highly recommend you do is check that you have your unique page titles. Additionally, your page titles should be contextual and descriptive and relevant to whatever that content page, that page content is. You can do some keyword research and a mapping process, and this can also help identify improvements that will aid your search engine performance. So our second field here is meta descriptions, page meta descriptions. So when entering these, you have a character limit of about 110 characters. And meta descriptions should also use SEO friendly keywords. These are actually seen on the search engine page results. So if you put in a search and you'll see a main link, under the link, that description is the meta descriptions. So they're really, really important in being well worded, because this is going to increase the click-through rate from that search through to your website. Okay, so our next SEO best practice is you can actually implement on your Shopmatic stores is all about product pages. So the way that you find this, if you're not sure, is again, go to your My Shopmatic webpage and click on the home menu button and then go to the web store again. But then this time you want to click on the products button. And the second thing is you go to add a product, or you might already obviously have your products listed. So the next step that you can do is click into, you'll have this window come up. You want to click into basic information. So this is where you can complete the product name and product descriptions. Additionally, have you added alt text to your website images? So a lot of you might have loaded up all of your products and you have your product names and product descriptions. If you haven't, or if you're not sure if you put alt text behind your images, then go into upload image or go into your images, and then you can click on edit alt text as shown in this screenshot. That will then bring you through to this screen. And so basically the alt text is how an image is actually defined in the code on your website. So the full name for alt text is alternative text. And this is really useful to search engines in identifying what the visual content is about. So the search engines can crawl all of your copy or all of your text on your website. They can't do that with images. So the alt text function helps them determine what that image is about. I know that technology is coming along, and they definitely have new technology in terms of crawling for videos and images, but the alt text is really important component of your SEO. One thing I would mention is to ensure that you don't keyword stuff the alt text. So it's not a good practice, as Google now ranks down for any keyword stuffing in the alt text fields in your website. If you're not sure what keyword stuffing is, again, back in the good old days of SEO, the growth hacks or the SEO hacks experts would actually load really a whole lot of, they could load hundreds of keywords into the alt text fields, which the website would crawl and think that there was lots of content there on all of those keywords, which really help with rankings. But if you're one of those people that did that when they changed the algorithms, your rankings would have likely have been wiped. And so this is when rankings get wiped, when people do these techniques. So again, authenticity is absolutely the key, and relevancy when we're talking about SEO. Okay, so you can also optimize each product page as well as the product name and description, or the category name and description for that page. So you can see here the page title and the meta description. And you can also edit or customize the last part of your URL. And if you do so, you can see at the bottom of the screen, you'll actually get an example of exactly what customers are going to see. So if you have a look at that URL and it's not really that clear on what that product is or what that service is or what you're describing for that particular page, you can actually adjust it in that section so it is cleaner and easier for your audience to interpret. Okay, so that was all of the amazing SEO features that Shopmatic has. So hopefully you've been able to take a note down of some of those things to check. Again, this session will be available on Shopmatic's resources tab, so you can go back and have a look at some of those screenshots, as well as obviously reach out to Shopmatic support if you need some help with those. But what I would say is they are absolutely your step one in terms of starting on your SEO journey. So now we're going to go a little bit further into the other components of SEO, just so that you know what you need to do now, which would be step one, focus on Shopmatic SEO. And then after that, what would the next things be, which you might be looking at in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time. But at least you can start thinking and planning about your SEO plan and journey. So we're going to do a deeper dive on what is technical SEO. And a lot of what we just went through with all the Shopmatic features is certainly a huge part of technical SEO, as well as we're going to identify some practical next steps for you to take on your journey. So the main goal of technical SEO is to optimize the infrastructure of your website. So again, what we just went through with all of those Shopmatic features is very much around optimizing the infrastructure of your website. So technical SEO is going to refer to the process of optimizing your website for crawling and indexing phases of your website so that it's easier for search engines to find us. If it's hard for search engines to index and crawl your website, then your ranking is definitely going to be a lot lower. So implementing important technical SEO tactics can help the search engines access, crawl, interpret, and index your website a lot easier and really accelerate this process for you. These tactics have to do with the behind the scenes code on your website, and the Shopmatic platform has done a fantastic job of making it really user friendly to implement a lot of those. So getting your technical SEO right, if it's bad, can give you, so if your SEO is bad, you give it some attention. Even though they're small tweaks, they can really, really significantly boost your rankings from an organic perspective. So obviously we went through some of the technical SEO. I've thrown up these terms, and look, just to give you a little bit of insight into what is involved for the whole technical SEO topic. This list covers, the major topics of technical SEO. Now, it's possible that many of these terms you might find difficult to explain. I certainly do. And they may even be completely unfamiliar to you, and that's okay, because we're here to simplify SEO in this session and really tackle it in a practical way. So the first practical step is to ensure that you have your technical aspects of your website meeting best practice standards. So to do this, assuming that you've implemented all of the best practices on the Shopmatic platform, what we'd actually recommend is that you do a technical SEO audit, and that you conduct this every 3 to 6 months. So ideally what I would suggest is set up your Shopmatic SEO features, make sure you've got Google Search Console connected, and have a look at any of the notifications that you're getting that you can optimize on your website yourself, or you might have a developer that does some optimizing, or a technical person that helps you with that. Once you do that, within 3 months, depending on the size of business, or 6 months. So if you're a startup or an early stage business, this is something you should do maybe once every 6 months. But if you're a well-established online business, then doing a technical SEO audit every 3 months will certainly be effective in terms of helping your rankings. So what I would suggest is doing a technical audit is the next step after you've set up your SEO. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. So earlier I referenced Google Search Console. So again, if you have some technical now, so you like to do some of the tasks, more technical things yourself, utilize Google Search Console as your first go-to tool. Now, I discovered a really great resource, which I'm just dropping into the chat now for you all to copy and save somewhere. But basically, I discovered this tool, this really great blog or article where there's step-by-step instructions on how to audit your website using Google Search Console. So if you save that link, and when you want to have a look at it, jump in, but they go through all of the steps. So it's a really great resource to help you assess your own website with Google Search Console. This one is particularly free using Google Search Console. There's definitely lots of other tools out there in the market that are thorough to conduct your SEO audit on your website, but a lot of them have costs. So, this is a great place to start. Secondly, if your preference is to get an expert to conduct your audit, then you can go to platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, and enter in that you want to do a SEO technical audit. You'll get loads, hundreds of different experts that can do this for you. What I would suggest is that if you see any that are over the cost of approximately 200 Australian dollars, then potentially they're going to be overkill for your size of business. So anything under 200, between 100 and 200 Australian dollars. Sorry, I haven't done my conversions for India and Singapore tonight or today. But once you actually put that in and look at the price range, you can then actually filter on both of these platforms for top rated experts, and then check out their reviews. So this is definitely the next step if you want some help with that. Finally, I'm also happy to introduce you to our SEO partner expert, who is actually going to be conducting the exclusive SEM reports for a number of our attendees tonight. So happy for you to reach out to me directly, and I can certainly do the introduction. Okay, so moving on to our second component of SEO, which is relevancy. When we talk about relevancy, it's really all about your content and how your content can be helpful and relevant to users, and obviously to search engine queries. So as I mentioned earlier, it's the search engine's job to deliver relevant information based on what the user's query is. But it's our job as a business to understand what our customers are searching for, and to create the relevant content to help them when they've got queries. So how do we become more relevant for our audience and help search engines to deliver our relevant content based on users' queries? So this is where we need a content marketing strategy. Now, content marketing is the new form of SEO. Content marketing not only works as far as, search engine results and rankings, but it also is something that can be repurposed and published across all of your digital assets. So whether that's content for your website, whether that's for emails, whether that's your social platforms, whether that's your advertising. So it's really important in terms of content marketing to give something of value to your audience whilst creating marketing assets that are going to serve you and your brand for years to come. So what we're talking about here is really understanding your target audiences, and if in terms of what inspires them or what kind of information or education that you can help that aligns with your values or your business that you can share with them. And it's great to have something that it isn't necessarily seasonal or right now. That way that content can continue to be shared, whether it's on your social or your website, and continue to increase in rankings because it's quality content that people are interested in. So here's just an example of how SEO and content marketing actually work together. And the contrast in terms of these two strategies is that SEO is definitely the narrow form of digital marketing, which is, we talked about, comprises a lot of the technical strategies and all of the tactics on how to enhance your rankings. So it's really the on-platform stuff, whereas content marketing is much more holistic. And it's a broader practice to help boost your website rankings. Both ultimately serve the same purpose. So in summary, content marketing relates to the creating of content for your website. However, SEO really needs the content to help you rank higher on your search engine results pages. So what I wanted to do is just to run through a high-level practical approach in terms of developing a plan for content marketing that should help you improve your SEO results. Now, I know we've already covered a lot of information in terms of what to do on your Shopmatic store and the technical audit piece. This is the next stage, and this is something that is, again, a longer term plan and might be something that you look at over the next 12 months. So don't be overwhelmed with, the information that's here. This is to give you an understanding of how you develop content that in a relevant way that shares, it's going to help your rankings. And this is something that you'll plan out over the long term. And even if it's something that you do once a month, once every 2 months, again, this is ultimately building a longer term, it's a longer term game. So I just put together sort of 6 key steps when we think about starting to build out a content marketing plan. So the first one is data analytics and insights. This is really important in terms of doing a really good deep dive into any data that you have that's going to give you insights about your target audience and about interesting queries and information. So some of the examples of what you can do here is you can look at some of your competitors' websites, so you can do some research on what kind of content do they have, and again, some audience research, so maybe looking at your Facebook or your Instagram or your YouTube insights and analytics to see what content is engaging. Our second step is to identify your goal. So it's easy to go and produce content, but that'll end up being a waste of time and money. It's really important to identify your goals around your content. So are you producing content to get further brand awareness? Are you doing it to boost revenue? Is it to increase conversions or brand loyalty, et cetera, et cetera. So when you know what you want to use the content for and you can identify your goals, you can develop content that's a lot more targeted to ultimately achieving, the growth for that particular goal. Additionally, not just the goals, but also the KPIs. So there might be things like you want to increase daily sales, you want to increase your conversion rate, you want to get more product reviews or returning customers. So again, having a sense of what your goals and your key performance indicators are is also a good thing to think about at this stage. Step 3 is going into content ideation. So this is where you want to think about the actual type of content that you're going to be producing. Is it, a video? Is it an infographic? Is it something you're going to put onto, social to get traction back to your website? After you're doing your ideation, you want to do your calendar planning. So you might decide between now and the end of the year that you're going to produce 3 different pieces of content. So that might be a blog, article, or a video. And then there's obviously the content creation, and then finally analysing and measuring those results. And again, that's not something that you need to be doing ongoing. You might just check in on those once a month to see what types of content are performing better for you. So as I mentioned, it definitely does take some investment in time, but it's will be much more effective for the growth of your business, having a plan around your content rather than just producing ad hoc content and not knowing what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to talk to and what you're trying to do, with that. And then finally, once you produce that content, again, it can be used, on your website, it can be used on your social channels. You can use it via email to your existing clients or your existing leads, and social, etc. And then finally, you can also use it in your advertising to amplify parts of that. So there's absolutely a lot of areas that you can repurpose your content once you develop it. Okay, so finally, our third component is authority. Now, again, this isn't something to think about in the short term if you need to look at your Shopmatic SEO and you're looking to do the technical audit. The next thing would be your content plan, and that might be something you do when you sit down and take a whole day to have a think about how you want to look at your data and insights and doing some research and doing a plan, who are your target audiences, etc. This will be in the longer term, but I don't want to leave it out because you have potentially heard of authority, and this is really all about focusing on metrics that the search engines will see you as being a trustworthy source for both search engines as well as users. So just to pop into, what does authority really mean? So when we talk about this in the context of search engines, authority is really link building, and this is the main practice. So you might have heard about link building and backlinks. So link building is basically building the building of one-way hyperlinks or backlinks to your website with the goal of improving your search engine visibility. So for example, if for example, Shopmatic have a link on their website about a blog or a video of mine that sends, if you click on that, it comes to my website, then that will increase my authority because Shopmatic's website has, high domain authority. It has high presence. It's a viable website, business and brand. So I would actually get an increase in rankings for that kind of backlink. So just in terms of common link building strategies for content marketing, this could be building useful tools, doing email outreaches, definitely broken link building. Sometimes we have, there might be links that are broken, so fixing those up will help increase your rankings as well. Interestingly, a company called Moz, which is quite a big company in the SEO space, they had a report that said that 21% of Google's ranking algorithm actually depends on the linking authority feature, which is basically, I was mentioning before, the domain authority. So the DA I mentioned earlier, any website with a domain authority over 40 will actually increase your linking authority. As well as about 19% actually depends on the page level link features. And this again is about how many sort of links do you have on your homepage, or on any of your pages. So for those that actually are going to have an SEM Rush report done, you'll see your domain authority on there. So it's going to be good to have a look at that and have a look at your links. Again, not necessarily a place that I would want you to be investing your time in right now unless opportunities organically came up. But this is just something for you to think about, to give some attention down the track. So now just wanting to finish off with a poll. We just wanted to understand, now that you have a better understanding of the components of SEO, which, do you think that you would actually like to invest some of your time in next? Thank you, Uma. So just tick one of these. Hopefully, yep, you've learned something from our session today, and you have some practical action items of where you want to spend your time next. Hopefully, you've written some of those points down. Obviously, this video will be available on the Shopmatic website, as well as the Shopmatic YouTube channel, so you can come back to some of the other areas that I've spoken about in terms of, deeper SEO in your journey. I also expect that down the track I'll do a further masterclass, a much deeper masterclass around the content marketing piece, as well as around the authority piece. But there was lots in this topic, so really hopefully you know where to start to focus on. Hi, Uma, how are we going?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm just looking at the responses flowing in. I think some of them are still thinking about it. So I'm going to wait for them. But those of you who have already answered, about 73% have said that they will want to focus on the technical SEO, and 40% are saying SEO relevancy, and 19% are saying authority. Obviously, some of them have chosen more than one, and that's why the numbers are stacking up like that. But I'm still waiting for a few more people to, just go ahead and think about what is it that you really want to focus on. That could be an area where, if you're one of our lucky winners of the SEO audit report, we could sort of like pay a little extra attention to if there was a focus area, how can we guide you on that as well, provided that's possible.
Yes.
Right. So absolutely. Yes. So, I mean, do let us know what is it that you want to actually share. So I'm just going to close the poll in about 5 seconds so that we can move on. All right. So at this point in time, we still have the same numbers stacking up, Claudia. 75% are choosing technical SEO. 40%, close to 40% are saying SEO relevancy is important, and about 19% or 20% are saying SEO authority. So the first low-hanging fruit really does seem to be the technical SEO that they want to get on and fix.
Yes, which makes a whole lot of sense based on our earlier polls. So I'm glad that you all know the next thing to focus on from a search engine optimization perspective. So, Uma, we can move into Q&As now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yep. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, as always, Claudia. I think it was an extremely complex topic, and you've broken it down quite simply and given some very practical guidance on how each of these three sort of pieces that you talked about can be achieved and in what order. So I think that is an extremely valuable input to get things started for our customers. So thank you very much for that. Yes, of course, absolutely. We should be going into the Q&A. We have a couple of questions already waiting for you. So let's
we've
get
got
on
Tapas
with it.
Here. Hello, Tapas. Good to see you again. I met with him last week for